The Last Game of Victor by Omar Cuellar. Victor was lying on his bed, face up, staring at the ceiling of his room. He was still wearing his baseball uniform, along with his dirty sports shoes on the clean bedspread. His arms were crossed over his chest, and his baseball cap lay beside his pillow. The entire uniform reeked of sweat, and he didn't care at all about getting dirt and grass stains on the bedspread. He was upset and felt like marking his territory as if he were some kind of animal. In his room there was a large red sign with the word "Stop" stuck on the door, a calendar showing December 1984 hanging on the wall above the headboard, and next to the calendar 2 posters, one of the Florida Gators and another of Deep Purple, his favorite rock band at the time. Victor felt frustrated. His team had just lost an important game, and that defeat had made him question why and what for he had joined the Mohawks of Providence, Rhode Island. What had been the purpose? What had been the point of all those long, hard afternoons of training with his grandfather? The truth was, Victor hated baseball, but deep down he knew exactly why and for what reason he had decided to start playing. He was lost in those ruminating thoughts when suddenly his grandfather entered the room without knocking. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Fine, considering I'm the worst player in the entire league." That's not how the kid who was hitting every ball I threw him sounded yesterday. "I told you." Victor sat up on the bed. "It's different when I'm practicing with you. You actually want me to hit the ball." "And you think your teammates don't want you to hit it? Is that it?" "They're not my friends, and I'm no good at baseball. I always ruin everything." Victor lowered his head, eyes closed, frowning. "You might be right," said his grandfather, and he began to slowly walk around the room with his cane, ready to deliver a lesson in wisdom. "But let me tell you something. The reason I insisted so much that you join the team is because I wanted you to try it, and if you ended up loving it as much as I did when I was young, I just didn't want you to end up regretting it the way I do." "Regretting what?" Victor's voice still sounded angry. "One day, just like you, after a bad game, I decided to quit playing for a month. It was a kind of ego tantrum. As you already know very well, after that month, I suffered the terrible accident that left me with this damn lifelong injury that would never let me play again. What I'm trying to tell you is that you should enjoy every single game. It doesn't matter whether your team wins or loses. You never know when it's going to be your last game." "I know." Victor lifted his head and looked at his grandfather with compassion, straight in the eyes. "I shouldn't take anything for granted in this life, not even a simple game." "That's right. Think about it, okay?" His grandfather came closer, stroked his hair, and kissed him on the head. "Okay." The wise old man left the room, and Victor was left even more stunned than before, because in addition to all the repetitive thoughts parading through his mind, he now also felt ashamed for not appreciating his healthy legs and young body, when there were other people, like his grandfather, who would give anything to have a body like his. But why had he joined the baseball team if he actually hated it so much, he thought. Let's see. On one hand there was Donovan, the popular kid in class, who only cared about sports to impress girls. Then there was Adam, who was overweight, and who most likely played not by choice, but because his parents or someone forced him to. Then there was Frank, who had realized he was too dumb for the rest of the subjects, and maybe had some hope of standing out in sports, although he probably still hadn't realized he was already standing out as the least intelligent. Then there were Donovan's followers, that is, all those who aspired to look and feel like him through baseball. And then there was him, Victor, who hated baseball, but in reality played it because... Why was he playing baseball? What for? Why? What for? Why? What for? Why? Years earlier, when Victor entered Moses Brown's school, he realized there was something very strange about him. His classmates seemed to feel pleasure when they talked and interacted with other classmates. During recess, Victor would watch how people talked and laughed in groups. Very often, the same people in those groups would talk and talk, but not listen. Everyone talked over everyone else, but everyone seemed to enjoy the act of talking. Victor, on the other hand, never felt any pleasure when speaking with other people. And Victor wanted to feel that pleasure. That was why one day the idea crossed his mind that perhaps if he joined the baseball team, he would manage to make friends and then could feel pleasure when talking to people. But Victor suspected that it actually worked the other way around. People felt pleasure when talking, and because of talking, because of the very act of talking, people developed friendships. Victor wanted, just once in his life, to feel what the others felt when they talked and laughed in groups. And that desire, or rather, that dream, was what made him think that baseball would be the means to achieve it. However, up to that point, his plan had not worked. Every time he spoke with his friends, he had to fake the laughter and the smiles, because he genuinely didn't understand why or what for people enjoyed talking so much. For Victor, that had always been the greatest mystery in the universe, and he was obsessed with one day being able to feel the pleasure that everyone else felt. The day was clear, but fortunately, the sun's rays weren't burning the skin. The spectators at the game, who were basically parents and friends, shouted excitedly in support of their favorite teams. In this game, the Mohawks were once again facing the Warriors, but Victor still felt discouraged because he still hated baseball, and he still hadn't felt that elusive, mysterious pleasure for which he had originally decided to start playing. All the cheers sounded in Victor's ears like boos directed against him. Boos because he was a loser. He was a loser because he still hadn't managed to discover what for everyone else had always been and would always be normal. I wish they would just shut the hell up, he thought. The shouting didn't let him concentrate, and in several attempts he failed to hit the ball. Victor walked back to the bench, where his coach scolded him. "Victor, what's going on? I don't even like playing." He took off his cap and threw it on the ground. "You only care whether I hit the ball because you really just want to beat Mackenzie." "What?" exclaimed one of the school teachers who was next to the coach. "Don't talk to Mr. Finnegan in that tone." "Go to hell," Victor told them, and went looking for his grandfather, who was sitting among the other spectators. Mr. Finnegan and the other teacher were shocked by his attitude, but Finnegan, with so many years of experience coaching teenagers, decided to do what he knew he had to do. Meanwhile, Victor went and sat down next to his grandfather. "Let's go. I ruined everything again. I just fought with the coach." "What happened? What did you do this time?" "I told them to go to hell. I didn't even pick up my cap." His grandfather looked at him, sad and disappointed. He didn't say anything. He knew he wouldn't be able to convince him to go apologize to the coach, so he stood up and said simply, "All right, let's go." Those words of indifference and the sad, disappointed look from his grandfather hurt him deeply, and then he remembered the shame he had felt the last time he spoke with his grandfather in his room, and how his grandfather would give anything to be able to play again if he were young once more and had never suffered that terrible accident. "No, wait, Grandpa. I'm going to fix it," he exclaimed, standing up and walking decisively toward the coach. Once he apologized to the coach, the man accepted that Victor could return to the game. He went back onto the field to play without his cap, since he couldn't find it anywhere. Grandpa is right. You have to enjoy the game. It doesn't matter whether we win or lose, because we never know when it might be our last game. After 10 minutes of play, Victor managed to hit the ball and ran as fast as he could from base to base. Half the spectators screamed with excitement because the Mohawks had just won the game. Victor couldn't believe it. His friends ran and gathered to hug and celebrate, and then Victor, watching them from a distance, finally began to feel it. He began to feel that pleasure, that strange sensation he had never experienced and had always been searching for. To celebrate having finally experienced that feeling, Victor ran excitedly toward his team, eager to hug them all. But before he could even embrace a single teammate, he sneezed very loudly, and then everyone around him began to faint. Terrified, Victor watched as all the players collapsed immediately after he sneezed, and then he began to feel a horrible pain throughout his entire body, as though hundreds of insects were crawling through all his insides. Then he lost consciousness. When he opened his eyes, he saw that all the players around him had been chewed up and torn apart, and that he had pieces of fingers in his mouth. The terrified spectators didn't dare stop that disgusting creature, which clearly was not from this planet, from devouring their children.